Well, and it's interesting, right? Like there was an article in the New York Times, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it was about teenagers and social media. And I didn't read it, to be honest, I did not read it. But I saw the headline and I was like, I'll go back to it because I was more interested in these four. I was really looking for the articles on the four people that were in Mexico. I'm sure you heard about
Oh
that.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, anywho, but even just from the title, it was, how the impact of like social media on teens. And I mean, I've read a lot of that research as it is. So I kind of have a general idea, not an expert by any stretch. But as soon as I saw the headline, I had this like overwhelming feeling or thought of like, yeah, but we're so disconnected. Like, we're more connected than ever. We have this technology we consume. I'm in New York, you're in Vegas, like we can have these like there are ways, like I have friends in LA that we do this and just like chit chat to feel it. But
I'm sorry. You chit chat with other people?
I know what? But it's like, yes, I mean, in some ways that's wonderful, right? Like I love the fact I get to see you and we can talk. And like, even if we weren't doing this, like there's the technology, but I also think that there is something about being in the space with people and feeling their energy and being able to hug someone and having that full like human experience. And like even a couple weeks ago, there was another article that I did read that I thought was so fascinating about how kids are having like not kids, young adults, younger adults are having less sex. And the whole article was about like the best sex that you've like in the survey people were doing. Granted, who knows who took the survey, how it was done. I mean, there's a lot of question marks around it. But it was saying like the best sex that these people were having were in their 60s.
Oh, really? Oh my God. I know.
I'll send it to you.
I feel bad for the kids. Don't get me wrong. But I am now thankful. Again, another thing to be thankful for.
I know. I literally sent it to my partner and I was like, we have something to look forward to. Yeah, here it is. I just said, because I sent it to him Friday. It says, this is the surprising age when you'll have the best sex of your life.
Yeah. Yes, please.
But I mean, it's like, is that going to deteriorate or like, I felt like even reading it and this other one about, that people are having less touch and like less, and it didn't talk about it, but I've just in previous readings or previous like exposure, I've read about like the impacts of porn. Like we've talked about it before. It's like, is it these unrealistic expectations of what sex is? Is that what, like, there's so many questions around that.
Let me ask you this though. And yes, I agree because I have had this same thought process about communication too, because the new generations are communicating less face to face. Even I've seen joke commercials about it that are probably not jokes, which is how they become commercials, right? Is you're standing next to each other and you're texting back and forth, right?
Well, and I think too, it's interesting. Like someone said to me yesterday that they believe that this next generation is going to completely be like, fuck your technology, fuck your phones. I don't want to be tracked. I don't want you to know that I walked into that store. I don't want you to be able to track every little fucking thing I do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would love to believe that that is a possibility, but I don't know. I have a really hard I mean, even kids, like I look at my friends' kids who are, 3 and 5, they are so addicted to those screens.
Yeah. And that is a little frightening, but
yeah, parents they try like, but that's like,
oh, I'm not blaming the parents. Don't misunderstand. I'm not.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And I don't either. I think it's easy but I do think it's, I'm not saying you or I are blaming it. I do think it's very easy for people to blame parents.
Sure.
And it's like, if that's the one thing that is like you're going to lose screen time, that's like the equivalent of like, if we were kids, you're not going to get to play your Nintendo.
Yeah. Or no, for me, I'm older than you. You're not going to get to go outside and play with your friends, right? But you know what? And again, for everything that we give up as a society, like personal connection or whatever, we do gain something.
100%.
I don't always know what that is necessarily. And the other thing I wanted to say along these lines is I'm constantly reminded of something that I forget like instantaneously, but I'm reminded when I saw a documentary, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, about the machete wielding homeless dude. I mean, I think that was the name of the documentary. And it was about this kid that saved a man from being murdered by the guy he was traveling in the car with. Hitchhiker, the machete wielding hitchhiker is what it was called. And he hitchhiked a ride with this guy who obviously was out of his mind, saw a black man on the road and decided he wanted to kill him because he was black. Yeah.
Oh, it's the hatchet wielding hitchhiker.
Oh, there you go. Hatchet wielding hitchhiker. And there's the whole documentary I'm watching. This guy like went viral. He was huge. Everybody was talking about him. Never heard of him. Never heard of it. Don't remember it at all. I'm like, where the fuck was I? Right? I'm like, I'm in media, or I was in media, but because I was in media, I do pay attention. I am on social media. I mean, I've never heard of him. And that's when I realized it's still a world full of billions of people. And just because it's like the 1%ers, but it's the 1%ers of the social media world, not necessarily the 1%ers of the, well, and I realize that's what we're all broken down into, right? I mean, there's still room. No matter how many times I'm like, oh, I'm never going to do this, or I'm never going to be that, or I'm never going to have the other. Then I realized, but there's still room in this world. There's room in this world for all types of people doing all types of things. Unfortunately, some of them are horrible, and I'd like for those to go away, but there's still room for good, right? And it might be a small portion of the population.
Yeah.
But it's just so it's funny how sometimes I hear these things where I start to go down that rabbit hole, and then I find that little escape path, and I go back up and I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't bad. Like, yeah, I don't hear about the hatchet wielding hitchhiker. Although the documentary was very interesting, I will tell you.
I just put it on my list. I got to check that out.